flame tube flame speed measurement, and we looked at what are the various methods available. So we looked into Schlieren, then we talked about flame tube. So as we discussed yesterday, we have different methods. So some are, as I said, some are propagation methods, some are stationary methods where the flame remains stationary. So when we talk about propagation methods, we will look into flame tube propagation, which is a linear propagation. Flame is linearly moving in a tube, okay, in a x direction, let's say. Whereas there are other examples where we'll see spherical propagation. So flame is spherically expanding in a spherical bomb or a soap film. That we'll see shortly. So this is what we discussed. So flame will move across a tube, okay, with which air fuel mixture at a given conditions. So what are the various issues? It is a standard technique, but it is not very accurate. Okay, so why? Because first there are natural convections that will distort the flame. When we talked about the theoretical description, we assume the plane to be a flat flame. Okay, but in a actual experiment, it will not be a flat flame. It will be curved. Okay, because of density difference, because of friction at the wall, because of heat loss at the wall, lot of effects are there, and buoyancy is also a major cause. So another measurement technique is using a spherical bomb. Okay, so basically what we do is we create one spherical vessel, and then we also have some windows so that we can take images of this flame. So it has basically, it is made of thick quartz, and we can take high speed images like this. This is Schlieren imaging, and when you have high speed or time resolved, basically the distance difference between these images is very small time, let us say in millisecond or microsecond. Okay, so generally when you have a high speed camera, you take images of the order of, let's say, 10,000 frames per second or something like that. So if you have that much resolution in time, then you can actually see a flame progressing like this. You can see how the flame moves out. Now one question. So let us say this is a closed vessel. So what will happen to temperature and pressure as the flame moves out? Let us say initially I have atmospheric pressure, atmospheric temperature, P naught, T naught. What will be the pressure and temperature at this stage? It will be higher or lower or same?
So temperature will increase.
Okay. Average temperature. What about pressure?
So pressure will depend upon the reaction and the state of products.
Okay. I will ask you another question. Let us forget about combustion, any reaction and all. Okay. You imagine that there is a closed vessel. Okay, closed is important. No, nothing is escaping, and you are heating the content. Imagine that there is no flame. You have a, let's say, you have a heater or something. Okay, through which you are heating the air inside this spherical bomb. Temperature is rising. You agreed to that, right? So if temperature rises, what will happen to pressure?
So it will increase.
Yes. So without any reaction also, if you are increasing the temperature, pressure will definitely rise. Okay. So when we talk about flame speed, I we have some given conditions. I say that the laminar flame speed of methane at 300 Kelvin and watt atmosphere is so and so. Okay. Now can you say that in such an experiment when this flame is almost filling the full vessel? So can I say that this is 1 atmosphere still? Yes or no? Just now you told that pressure will rise.
No, sir, it will not remain the same.
So what to do? Can we use this technique to measure flame speed or not? You, you understand the problem?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
When the flame becomes large or when it occupies a substantial volume of the vessel, at that time basically pressure is keep on building. But when the flame becomes large, basically we are concerned with the average temperature of the vessel or average pressure. So when the flame is large, the pressure is quite high. If the flame is small, let us say like this, or let us say like this or smaller, then there is on an average the pressure of this vessel is not changed much. So if you assume it to be atmospheric, it is approximately okay. Okay. Now another problem is if the flame is too small. If the flame is too small, we have curvature effects, we have issues, heat loss from the electrodes and all that. Heat loss will always be there, electrodes will interfere, but if the flame is little large, it will not matter much. But if it is very small, then it will also matter. So for a spherically expanding flame, basically if the flame is too small or too large, we cannot, accuracy is compromised. So what we do is we take measurements when the flame is of, let us say, some medium size. It is not too large or too small. When it is in between, in a small range of radius, that is what we record and that is what we use for flame speed measurement. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now let us do some analysis. How do we, by measuring, so if I measure this radius with time, dr by dt, will it be the flame speed? If I measure how this radius is, what we are doing here, if I measure how this flame radius is expanding with time, right? So I will get dr by dt, dr or drf. Rf is basically a flame front. So if I have that data, will it be flame speed or can I obtain flame speed using this dr by dt? Yes, you people are sleeping or what?
Sir, dr by dt will be the flame speed.
Okay. Now we need to go back to the definition. That will not be the case, but I will compare it with, let us say, flat flame in a tube, and let's see whether that is the speed or not. So imagine that this is the flame front, and imagine this part. If I take a very small section, I have exaggerated it, but if it is very small and if the radius is large, I can approximate it with the flat flame, right? Let us say we have
Yes.
flat flame in a tube. So one side is burnt, one side is fresh gas, right? Now if you look at this tube, okay, what is the difference between this spherical flame and tube is that this one is expanding, this one is stationary, right? Now let us look at the transform the coordinates. So for a stationary flame, I need to feed fuel air mixture at SL. SL is laminar flame speed. Okay. Now what will happen to the burnt gases that is leaving this flame? Will it go away by SL or any other speed?
It's a greater than SL.
Greater than SL. Let us say this is VF. Okay. Now if we transform the coordinates, so from the lab coordinates, let us say I am observing this to be stationary. Okay. Now let us say that this is not stationary. What happens here? So for this, if I want to imagine this to be stationary, what I need to do? I will say my observer moves with this flame, right? Let us say someone is sitting on the flame front or it moves along with the flame, then I can say that okay, this flame front is also stationary, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, for that I will say that okay, for that I will say that in this case this fuel is approaching the flame. Here what is happening? Fuel is outside, burned gases is inside. Okay, so this is moving out with what speed? SL or VF? Now you tell me.
SL.
SL, what about VF? So burned gases are there. That is what is pushing this flame also, right?
Yes, sir.
About it. Think about it. Whether it will be VF or SL. So here the burned gases are going out of the tube. In this spherical flame, they are inside. They are not going anywhere. So burned gases are basically not moving. So I have to subtract that speed from here, from the flame front speed RF. So this will be VF or SL. This is little tricky, but if you think about it, you will understand.
Yes, sir. The instantaneous surface area into VF will give the flow increase in volume rate. So that will give dr by dt.
So what I am saying is dr by dt is VF. Everyone agrees to that? Okay, let
Yes,
us
sir.
look at all the equations. So what is your m dot? M dot is rho AV, right? Flow rate for any fuel or burned gases. I can say rho into N to V. Now, what about unburned gas, fresh gas? So for fresh gas, m dot will be rho u is for unburned A into SL, right? This is coming at SL. So this is m dot for unburned or fresh mixture, which is approaching the flame, whether in a tube or in a sphere. This is what is approaching. Now what is leaving? Burned gases are leaving. Burned gases are leaving at rho b is the density of burned gases, area remains the same, and VF. VF is the velocity of burned gases, right? So which should be greater, m dot u or m dot b? Yes.
Sir, it should be same. Otherwise, the flame thickness will increase.
Yeah. See, in last class we talked about conservation of mass. That says that both m dot u and m dot b should be exactly same. There is no destruction or construction of mass. So that remains same. So this two I can equate. If I can equate that, so you see here SL and VFR, we have a relation which relates them. So I can write SL is rho B by rho U into VF. Okay, area gets cancelled. Or I can say what is VF is basically dr by dt. Okay, that's what we are discussing initially. So I can say if I measure dr by dt, you can also write this as drf, dr of the flame front, dr by dt into, this is called expansion ratio, or let us say ratio of density, that will give you SL. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So this dr by dt is not SL, but if you relate it with the density ratio, that will give you SL. That will be true for any spherically expanding flame, whether it is a spherical bomb or a spherical soap bubble. We will also look at into that. So let us now look at some issues with this measurement technique. Okay, so as I mostly these things I've discussed, just it is listed on point wise, so you can better to revise for you. So as the flame propagates, as it becomes big, then pressure and temperature increase. Okay, because the outside gas is compressed. Now, when this flame is very small initially, okay, at that time, see, there will be pressure change and temperature change inside the flame, but on an average, for the vessel, when you talk about ambient conditions, then there is a very negligible change in temperature and pressure. So, for a smaller flame radius, we get accurate, somewhat accurate or more accurate than this. Okay, so the pressure we can assume it to be whatever the initial pressure was, right? But later on, it keep on increasing, and then the burning velocity also changes. Okay, so for very large flames, it is not accurate to take flame speed measurement using spherical bomb. And as I mentioned, it is not a good idea to take too small or too large flame radius. So when it is in between that, in between we define some range where it will be accurate, somewhat accurate. Okay, so what are the assumptions involved? So we say that flame front thickness is anyway quite small, and we also neglect the effect of curvature. Okay, curvature will also play some role, but we are not talking about that. We assume that that is negligible, and we assume the flame front to remains smooth, spherical, and centered. This is also major assumption, centered at the points of ignition. Okay, if you, I don't remember if I have shown you one spherically expanding video in the first class. Anyone remembers that? Or you want me to go there again? So the flame, uh, assuming it to remain, let me look at that video. Okay, not here. Maybe I'll show you in some other class. Or okay, I will put that in next class. So basically, what you can see in that video is, or let me finish this, then maybe I will show you that video. So generally what happens that the flame front is not, what do you say, smooth. Okay, it is generally spherical, but it also has lot of cellular instability, corrugation, Darius-Landau instability, lot of other effects are there which makes it difficult to maintain a smooth flame, smooth spherical flame. Okay, it may also, if it is large, it may also get, it will rise from the center of ignition. Lot of issues are there, but to certain accuracy level, it is quite good technique. Now we also assume that the pressure is constant. That is again a valid assumption when your flame radius is small. No heat loss, including radiation. And we also assume that chemical equilibrium is achieved. Okay, that is a standard assumption. Moving on. Another technique. Now, one major issue with this is that if you have a finite radius, if either you keep a very large vessel, okay, so that up to certain radius I can measure the flame speed. So basically the idea is that your flame should be small in comparison with your bomb. If this is bomb is like, let us say if you have a very big 10 meters radius of this, then you can, even if a flame is large, it will look something like this. So the relative size is important. Okay, and if you, generally it is very expensive to create a pressure vessel that do very big. So that is one issue with this technique, that pressure builds up, pressure rises as you keep on burning. So to overcome that, what we can do is we can use a soap film. Okay. So what we do is we create a bubble. So bubble you all know, right? In that we fill that with gas. We basically use gas to create bubble, fresh gas, which is a mixture of fuel plus air. We use that gas to bubble through some soap solution, and that creates a bubble. Okay. Now in that bubble, we will put igniter and we will burn that. Now at what will happen is, as your gas or as your flame front grows, the bubble also expands, right? You people understand what I'm talking about?
Yes.
So since your bubble is also expanding, and it is approximately safe to say that pressure remains constant. That will, strictly speaking, that may not be true, because surface tension will change. Sorry, surface tension will depend on radius of the bubble, so it will also change. Tension or pressure inside will slightly change, but to some approximation, I can say that it remains constant. So one major difficulty that we faced in the last example is overcome here. We are maintaining the pressure constant, and then we can measure the flame speed and say, okay, this is the flame speed for 1 atmosphere or whatever pressure you are measuring on. Okay, so this is one advantage, but there are other disadvantages. So same way we will take measurement for SL is density ratio into dr by df. Now what are the issues with this? Okay, so first we cannot have a dry mixture. It will always, since we are creating a soap bubble, it will always have lot of moisture in it. Okay. Another issue is it may not retain a spherical shape. The bubble may get distorted and the flame will also get distorted. Flame front will not be smooth. That is another issue. And this is also an issue with the previous technique, that electrodes will have some heat loss, and that will give rise to errors. Okay. And again, as you might have realized, it is not a very easy job to create a bubble with fuel mixture and all that. So what type of setup you are using, how do you create this bubble, that limits the applicability of this technique. Okay. Now let us look at stationary methods where the flame is not moving, unlike the previous discussed techniques. So this include, you can have a flame tube, Bunsen burner, or flat flame burner. Okay, flame tube is basically what we have already discussed. So the idea is that you have a tube, create a flat flame by supplying fresh mixture at SL. Okay, so once you are able to stabilize the flame, once you get this, basically what happens, you will keep on supplying mixture at different velocities and try to get this stable. If the velocity is low, the flame will move left side. If you increase velocity U, it will move at right side. But if it exactly matches SL, then it will stay stationary. Okay, so this is a very good configuration to discuss the theoretical analysis for the flame. Okay, but practically it will be little tricky. How do you maintain a stationary flame? And anyway, as we have discussed, this will not remain flat. It will get curved, and then buoyancy effects and all that. So it is not a very good technique. But yes, it is. If you don't have anything else, this could be used to measure the flame speed. Okay. Now these are the limitations. As I mentioned, you cannot have a perfectly flat flame, which is what we assume. Then there will be heat loss, buoyancy effects, and all that. Now another more cleaner technique or more easier to generate, that is by using the Bunsen burner. As we have already discussed, flame speed is what? U sin theta. You can, U by the rate of flow rate of this fuel, right? And you just have to take some images and measure this angle theta. Once you have theta, you can use this equation and find SL. Right? You people are with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what are the issues with this? This is a very simple and elegant technique, but it also has some issues. So, for example, there will always be heat loss to the wall. That will compromise on your accuracy. And this is an interesting thing that I will show some numerical to make you understand. But for now, you can assume that the burning velocity does not remain constant. Okay, generally we assume for ideal, when we take all ideal assumptions, we assume that the burning velocity remains constant, but that might not be the case. Okay, just just let us agree for now. I will show you a numerical where I will look into more depth into what is happening exactly. Okay. Another thing is that since it is an open to air, so atmospheric air also enters. That will create some difference with the mixture ratio and all that. So, and another thing is that if you have a large tube, so flame stimulation will be difficult, and flashback would also be an issue. We'll study flashback in the next chapter, but basically it refers to when a flame moves into the burner. Okay, instead of going up, it will go down and it will burn the rim of the burner. So that is one issue which might be there for a large diameter a burner. Okay, it is not a major issue. It is a just a minor issue. But if you have large diameter, then it could be a major issue. Now let us look at another technique, which is flat flame burner. Okay, so this is one of the cleanest, I would say, technique. So what we do here is we have a burner where we supply fuel and air mixture. So we have some flow settling chamber where we'll have flow settling tubes, or we'll have glass spheres, which will basically make this. The idea is to make the flow uniform. Okay, and finally we have a sintered metal disc. So this is basically a porous disc. Okay, what it does is it makes your velocity quite uniform. It will not be having a parabolic profile. It will be very uniform or flat profile. And because of that, we get a flat flame, which is very close to the surface. I should have some photos. Okay. So one important criteria here is that you should also be cooling these coils. Basically, we have water tubes. Can anyone tell me why that cooling is required?
Sir, to prevent damage due to flashback.
Flashback will not happen here, but yes, the flame is quite near to this sinter disc, so it could burn this. Okay, I will show you some examples. Now, another interesting use of water is that generally when we talk about flame speed, we talk about adiabatic flame. We don't consider heat loss. So what we do here is that we change the cooling rate. Okay, at some cooling rate, we have some measured, let us say, at this cooling rate, I measure some flame speed. At another cooling rate, I will measure another flame speed. Right? We have two different values of flame speed. Now I keep on changing this cooling rate and I get different flame speed. Now ideally, theoretically, what I need to have adiabatic flame. Okay, where there is no cooling rate is 0. But that is not practically possible to achieve. Otherwise, this will burn. That actually has happened with one experiment, but which I was doing. I will show you some slides. But this is what we try to achieve. So what we do is up to some practical limit where I can possibly measure speed without burning this, I will measure the SL at this cooling rate. And this plot I will extrapolate. Okay, the solid line is where I do experiment. Dotted line is where I extrapolate it. So I will extrapolate it to adiabatic cooling rate, and then this is my SL. This is the laminar flame speed for the particular fuel. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
So this is one of the most accurate techniques available. Extrapolated for zero cooling conditions. That's all. Now this is what this actually looks like. Okay, so there's a sintered disc, and there are these are the cooling tubes. Okay, so you can change the, generally we use water for cooling this, so you can change the flow rate of water to obtain different levels of cooling, and there's a port for fuel. So this is what it looks like, and as you can see, this it creates a very flat and uniform flame. So it is widely used for different type of calibration. It is also very useful for when you have laser diagnostics. So when you are studying kinetics, if you want to calibrate your basically, let us say you have a burner, you want to take some PLIF images, planar laser induced fluorescence. Those type of studies, this becomes very useful, because this is a very standard burner. It has been characterized by a lot of research groups, so you know exactly if you maintain standard or given conditions, you know exactly how, what sort of variables, what sort of radicals will be there, what will be the concentration of a particular uh, radical. So a lot of this diagnostic studies, this type of flat flame burner is very useful. Okay. Now, how do I measure flame speed? So basically, I obtain the flame area by doing any visible imaging, what I showed in the last slide, or you can also take shadow or Stellian images. So you have quite accurately obtained the flame area. Now, burning velocity obtained by dividing flame area with volumetric flow rate. I know what is the m dot for fuel. I know what is the area. So I can obtain what is the flame speed. And as I said, this is the one of the most simplest and accurate methods discussed so far. Only thing is your cooling should be proper. So I also during my PhD I made such a burner, but if you can see, this is not a very flat, because I had some issues with cooling, and eventually the burner that I made, I had some issue with this cooling tubes. Okay, I have created tubes outside of this disk. I was trying to uh, manufacture a different design, and finally this got burnt. So maybe I can share some pictures. So at the end of my experiment, this is a copper or bronze tube center disk. This become charred. It is now black in color. So that you have to be very careful. If you are doing any experiment with this, you must make sure that water is always flowing. If you are trying to take adiabatic measurement, you will end up burning this. Okay, fine. Moving on. Now let us look at what are the various factors. Now we have discussed various methods to measure flame speed. Now what are the factors which will govern or which will influence your laminar flame speed? So as we have discussed, laminar flame speed is very is a fundamental importance. Okay, it is a characteristics of a particular fuel for a given conditions. Now, as we have seen in the last few slides, that when we define laminar flame speed, it is very for a very ideal type of condition. Okay, flat flame, smooth sphere, and all that. We assume there is no heat loss, no interference from electrodes and all that. So that is good to think theoretically, but it is difficult to experimentally create such type of ideal conditions. Okay, but what we need to do is we need to understand, okay, what are the various factors involved and how it can affect. For example, spherical bomb, pressure is building up. So if you know how your pressure builds up, or sorry, how the pressure build up affects your flame speed, then you can think about whether the flame speed is increasing or decreasing, how it affects. That is what we are trying to understand here. So this is one equation given by in the terms book. So what you can see is that your flame speed, that depends on lot of factors. Some of them are equivalence ratio, initial temperature, that we know that is that can be obtained from theoretical dependence. Now other thing is it also depend on addition of inert gas, change in pressure and all that. So in this you can say that this is dependent on unburnt temperature, burnt temperature. This is the average temperature. Then these are the chemical properties: activation energy, gas constant is anyway constant, burn temperature, and then it has the dependence of pressure. Okay, so we will look at all these factors one by one in next few slides. So first let us talk about equivalence ratio. So basically what we need to understand is, we are talking about equivalence ratio. First we will understand how equivalence ratio governs your flame temperature. Now the same trend will be followed for flame speed. Okay, so for flame temperature, this is the plot. X-axis shows you equivalence ratio. Okay, y-axis shows you adiabatic flame temperature. Okay, so as you can see, we are getting a peak near equivalence ratio 1, slightly richer, almost like 1.1 we are getting this. Okay, so we get a peak and then it falls down both for lean and for rich mixtures. Okay, so ideally I would expect that this peak is for 1, but it is not for 1. Can anyone explain or guess what could be the reason?
Sir, because the reaction does not practically reach to completion.
No, it should reach. That is not a reason. Okay, let me tell you this. So it has something to do with specific heat. Okay, so I will give you a assignment to you people, everyone. Try to find out. You can see all this information is available on. You can do internet. You can do a Google search and get. So take any standard hydrocarbon. Let us say hydrogen, methane, even hydrogen or propane or anything. What are the products? Product will be carbon dioxide plus hydrogen, water. So try to search what is the specific heat for the reactant and for the products. Okay, the answer why it lies at 1.2, it is hidden in the fact that what is the specific heat of your reactant and specific heat of your products. So try to get some values and think over it, and this we will discuss later. I first want you to probe, think about it, and then we'll explain in the class. And I'm giving this as an assignment. Okay, so not next class, maybe next week. Monday Tuesday we'll discuss on this. Okay, so this is the homework. I will note it down in this Google Classroom also. Okay, now let us talk about flame thickness. So equivalence ratio also affects the flame thickness. When you reach near the equivalence ratio of 1, you are having the minimum thickness, and then it again rises for rich and lean mixture. Okay, so there's another thing which is called quenching distance, which we have not discussed this. So let us postpone that discussion for next chapter. For this, for now, you can just look at this plot. This is the plot which is we are discussing about. This refers to flame thickness. Okay. Now, finally coming to flame speed. So we have seen in previous slide, this is how the temperature plot also looks like. Same trend will be followed by flame speed. Okay, for different fuels, you can see that around slightly richer, around equivalence ratio, or let us say 1.1, something of in that range, we are getting a peak and then it falls off for rich mixture and lean mixture. Again, falling is logical because the bonding is not complete. We'll have some unburnt reaction, either it is too lean or too rich. We'll have some, for rich we have unburnt fuel, for lean we have unburnt or unused oxygen, right? So that's why the temperature is lower. So this is the temperature is lower and flame speed is also lower. Is it clear? You people are with me or not?
Yes, sir.
So if you're not clear, if you want me to repeat anything, please let me know. Okay. So this was for some hydro and alkanes. Similarly, for smaller smaller chain hydrocarbons, we are getting the same trend, but there is some difference between their flame speed. That's all. Same trend will be shown by different fuels. Now let us again for equivalence ratio again affects your adiabatic flame temperature. These are again I am plotting for different fuels. Same trend will follow for your SL. Okay, so now two species are different, hydrogen and CO. Other than that, mostly flames are peaking around 1 and then they are dropping for rich and lean. Okay, and these are the laminar flame speed. Generally, we talk about equivalence ratio of 1 for stoichiometric mixture. So for methane, stoichiometric ratio of methane at standard conditions. So basically, if I remember correctly, this is for atmospheric conditions and 298 Kelvin, which is the standard reference state. So if you have methane, equivalence stoichiometric ratio of methane and air at 1 atmosphere 298 K, it has to burn on for this speed 40 centimeter per second. Similarly, for different hydrocarbons and different fuels, they have different speed. Particularly, you must note that hydrogen has a very large flame speed as compared to other hydrocarbons. Okay, so this is a different unique feature of hydrogen, which actually makes it quite dangerous. Okay, now how temperature affects your flame speed? So as you can see in this plot, it is basically a collage of different experiments. So one research group has done some experiment and then plotted curve fit. Curve fitting of the data shows you that flame speed increases with temperature. Unburned gas temperature is here, so flame speed is increasing. Right? So can anyone explain why is that so? Yes, you are there or not? I sometimes feel that I have walked out or something like that.
Yes, sir.
There or not there? Let me check.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So tell me why they have stopped recording. Anyway, so why should rise? Why should not constant or decrease? Okay, tell me about reaction. So going by the Arrhenius rate, if I heat a mixture, will it react fast or will it not be affected at all?
So faster.
Faster,
So if
sir.
it reacts fast, then same way. So if you try to connect that with flame speed, then you will see that you're following the same trend. So if the reaction is fast, so your burning temperature will also be higher because already it is at a higher temperature initially, and then the flame speed also increase. See another plot, it shows flame speed for hydrogen affected by temperature. So basically, all these images I am taking from research papers. So different groups have done different, use different techniques, and they have carried out some measurement. So if you compare, but the important point here is that everyone is getting the same trend. No one is saying that the flame speed is decreasing. There could be some differences because of, as you have discussed, there are lot of issues involved with what technique you are using. So that it is a very possible cause for this difference, but So if you look at the trend, so we are getting increase in flame speed with increase of unburned gas temperature. Okay. Now let us talk about effect of pressure. How pressure affects your temperature. So if you look at pressure versus temperature plot, so you see that all these gases are increasing. Sorry, temperature is adiabatic temperature is increasing because of pressure. Anyone would like to guess why will that happen? Okay, fine. The next guess is if temperature is increasing, what will happen to the flame speed? Flame speed will increase or decrease?
Say increase.
Correct. Okay, so you stick to this. If you change the flame temperature, the same trend will be followed by flame speed. Now, but we have another observation. The observation says that with increase of pressure, burning velocity is actually decreasing. So, any guess why is that so? Okay, let me explain. Okay, one more plot. Again, with increase of pressure, your burning velocity is decreasing, as you can see. So all these are experimentally measured. Now let us look at the explanation. So what happens is, we have observed that flame speed decreases with increase in pressure. Now something is increasing. What is that something? That something is burning flux is increasing. Okay, more mass of fuel is burning, but eventually your SL gets decreased because you need to burn more mass. So if you increase pressure, what will happen is, look at this plot. So for 0.5, if you go to 1, 5 atmosphere, 10 atmosphere, your flame speed is coming down. Right? You forget about this one, just focus on this plot. Is this clear what is happening here?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so flame speed is actually decreasing, but the mass of fuel burnt, which is shown here, laminar burning flux, which is gram per centimeter square second, which actually talks about your mass m dot per unit area. Okay, that is increasing. So for 0.5 atmosphere, you are burning this much amount. Then for 5 atmosphere, you are burning this much amount. So more mass of fuel is burned, but because it is actually a little tricky concept. With increase of pressure, you are burning more mass. Your temperature is also increasing, right? Sorry, this plot. Temperature is also increasing, but overall, what happens? The overall effect is that your burning velocity SL decreases with pressure. So this is a very important result, which is little bit counterintuitive. Okay, is everyone clear with this?
Sir,
Yes.
can you explain the why the T adiabatic was increasing with pressure?
Okay. See, with increase of pressure, you have more mass of what do you say? More mass of fuel getting burnt, right? And since you have a higher pressure, let us say your volume is, let us say I maintain the same volume. So because of that, the pressure gets increased and temperature gets increased. Well, yeah, this is the plot. Anyway, let me do one thing. I will add some more results, and then it will be more easy to understand. Okay, so let us skip this for now. Tomorrow we will discuss this again. Okay.
Yes.
Is this fine? Okay, let us try to wind this up now. So last topic is effect of inert gas addition. Okay, so what will inert gas do? If I add an inert gas, it will take consume heat. It is not taking part in any reaction. It will be there in the reactant. It will be there in the products. Okay. So it will consume heat, and depending on the specific heat of that particular gas, we see different temperature. Okay. Now we know that specific heat of air is lower than that of N2. So it will absorb lower heat than N2. So that's why if you are burning in air as compared to you are burning in argon, you will have higher temperature. Is this clear?
Yes, sir.
Now similarly, if I burn in helium, then it has a lower specific heat, it will have higher temperature. That's all. Since it has higher temperature, then the same trend will be observed for burning velocity. It will also increase. Okay. So air and helium has, both of them have same or similar specific heat. So final temperatures are equal, but diffusivity is different. Okay, thermal diffusivity will also affect your flame speed. So because helium has a higher diffusivity, so SL will be higher for helium. So I can conclude by saying that flame speed depends both on specific heat and thermal diffusivity. Both are responsible to give you final flame speed. Okay, so this is the summary of what we have discussed so far. Equivalence ratio for how it affects, these are the various parameters and how they affect the flame speed. Okay, so SL is maximum for near stoichiometric. Okay, a slight correction here. One around slightly rich mixture will have maximum flame speed, and it will decrease for both rich and lean mixtures. Flame thickness follows the opposite end. Because the flame speed is higher, flame thickness will be lower. That we have already seen that this is proportional, inversely proportional. Now what about temperature? SL increases with increase in initial temperature, unburnt temperature, pressure. Now this is actually something interesting. I want to add some more bullet points. So basically what happens? Burning mass flow M naught will increase with increase of pressure, but SL will decrease. Okay, so this is a very interesting phenomena that SL decreases with increase of pressure. And addition of inert gas basically lowers the specific heat. Then SL becomes higher. Okay. So this was the summary for various factors affecting your flame speed, laminar flame speed. Now quickly I will go through turbulent premixed flames. Okay. So this is what you have seen. This is the type of flame which we have discussing so far in this chapter. So it looks like nice, smooth laminar flames, right? Laminar flames are expected to behave like this. Now what about turbulent flames? This is what the turbulent flame will look like. Okay, you can see there are large corrugations. It is not very uniform. It will also vary with time and all that. And this is a leaf image. So it is a cut. You can imagine it is a cut section of a flame, which shows you how, I think this is OH leaf. So how OH is distributed. Whereas for this case, you get a very nice, smooth and uniform profile. Okay. So how do turbulence affects? So as you can see, if you have lower turbulence, it is less corrugated. If you have higher turbulence, if you increase the intensity of turbulence, you increase the level of corrugation. Okay? You people are with me or not?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now the question is, how does turbulence affect the flame speed? Okay. So we have, this is our standard configuration. Now let us say I have turbulent. So what you have seen that this flame front corrugates, right? This is what we saw in the last slide. So what difference will it make to the flame speed? Generally we know that ST or turbulent flame speed is higher than SL. Now there are actually a lot of different things happening. Turbulence also affects your chemistry. Okay, but one very common or very general observation is that it affects the flame surface area. You see, it becomes corrugated, so the area is increased. Because of that surface area, it will consume more mass of fuel, right? For example, let us say I have a tube, I have another tube with larger diameter. So which one will consume more mass? Let us say laminar frame. So which one will consume more mass? This one, larger tube or smaller tube?
Larger.
Larger. Why? Because it has larger surface area. Now if I create larger surface area in this one, can it also consume the same mass like this? Yes or no? If I have larger surface area by corrugation, what is happening here? Can I increase the mass which is getting burnt?
Sir, if the flame speed remains the same, then it will increase.
Yes, let us say flame speed remains same, laminar
Yes.
flame speed remains same, and it has more corrugation. So it is a very simplistic approach to look at it. Then this will burn, and hence St will be larger than Sl. So this has been experimentally observed. So this is St by Sl, means how much ratio of turbulent and laminar flame speed. You can say it is like 10 times or 20 times for some examples, depending on what is the level of turbulence. This is your fluctuating component of velocity divided by laminar flame speed. So it increases significantly. Now there is one more. You have a class after this. Should I stop? Or 5 minutes I can take. I have 2 slides only.
Yes, sir.
You have class? Okay. So we'll stop for today. And we'll continue this in tomorrow's class. Okay?
Yes, sir.
I think I stopped recording.